earlier I demonstrated some techniques with the Theracane, and again you can use the Theracane for engaging some trigger points as well as using it as an anchor to do a self cross-hand release. I had already demonstrated how you could anchor in the trap and then do a side bend, which would kind of create a cross-hand release that you would want to maintain for that 90 to 120 seconds. But this could also be used for, trigger point self-release techniques. And what you would want the person to do would be to find the trigger point and then, apply pressure just to the point where they can feel the pressure but it's not uncomfortable. And then maintain that pressure for a good 90 to 120 seconds, increasing the pressure as the tissue releases. So the Theracane is useful in that it can be used in multiple different ways without having the arms above the head and creating discomfort in that way. So we could see how it was easy to really get into the trap, but also you can use it to slide around and just do around, say, the medial border of the scapula. Really nice and easy to do that. And again, I'm kind of moving fast, but what you would do is find the trigger point, hold it for 90 to 120 seconds, gradually following the release as it takes place. It can also be turned around and used, in the pectoralis muscle. It can be used as a hook in the quadratus lumborum or even in the piriformis. You can use it to release all through the ITB. And you can even turn it around and use it as a trigger point release throughout the feet. It's really limitless what you can do with self-release with this. Other tools that I really like to use and which are inexpensive, this is just 2 tennis balls and a tube sock. And this can be used for all forms of self-release. Again, your goal is to ask the person to find what feels hot, hard, or tender, and then to just apply gentle pressure to that area until they feel that tissue release, and to encourage them to do it for at least that 90 to 120 seconds. So this is the 2-inch ball that I mentioned on the flyer. It's just 2 tennis balls and a tube sock. This could be done against a wall. It could be done on the floor. I like to have the person roll in this so that their spine is right here, and then this can actually release the paraspinal muscles. And it also can be used at the occipital base for a release. So how that would work is you would just teach them to take the tennis balls and put them on the sides of the spine, and then they could kind of roll and find what area would be tender, and then they would just maintain pressure there until some of that tenderness would go away. At the occipital base, you can put it right here, and again, for somebody who's having a lot of headaches or has a lot of tension in the back of their neck, this is a great tool for them to use, and it's inexpensive. Just to put behind their head like this. Another tool that I like to use is just a 4-inch playground ball. And you can find these at Target or Walmart. I like it because it's squishy, and you can really modify how much pressure is there by taking air out of the ball. So the harder the ball is, the more intense it is, and the softer the ball, it kind of diffuses that pressure a bit and makes it more comfortable. This can be used for releasing really any muscle group. I particularly like to use it even for transverse plane releases when you can lie directly on it, and for releasing the psoas. So for example, on the psoas, you would take the 4-inch ball, and I would say for them to go 2 inches to the side of their belly button, put the ball here, and now the psoas you can get all the way up underneath the rib cage to all the way down, near their pelvis to try to release that psoas. So they would find where that is, and then you can modify how much pressure there is by being on your elbows, and then kind of slowly sink into it and allow that 90 to 120 seconds to take place in order for that release to take place. If this is too intense, I would have them start on a bed, because the bed will bury the ball a bit, and there will be less pressure, and then they can move that to a harder surface like the floor. Self-help tools would be a sacro wedgie, and there is a male and a female sacro wedgie because of the difference in the size and shape of the sacrum. So this can be useful in mobilizing the lumbosacral joint as well as the sacroiliac joint. It also can be a way for you to engage the sacrum and then stabilize the occiput as well with either the 2-inch balls or an occipivot pad to maintain a dural tube stretch. Okay. A word of caution with the sacro wedgie, you really have to be careful with who you prescribe this to because it is something that can be overused. So you need to really make sure that whoever is using it is going to be compliant with what your treatment choice time for them is and not overdo it. So here's the sacro wedgie. I'm going to demonstrate how to use this. This is an occipivot pad, and it has kind of what looks like little fingers here to go right in the suboccipital space. It's most intense when you put this on the suboccipital space, but I can also tilt it up so that my occiput is just cradled here, and that's less intense, and that would be also useful for a dural tube stretch. Let me show you how you use these. So the sacro wedgie, this is going to go just distal to the lumbosacral space. This would go right underneath here. And the person would lie with their knees bent. Again, if this was too intense, they could start with it either A, against the wall, or B, on a bed, and then the progression would be to the floor. Now, to stabilize the occiput, I could use this like this. If that were too intense, I could just tilt it upward like this so that it cradles the occiput. But this together would create a nice dural tube stretch for someone. If either this is too expensive for the client or too intense, you can also start with the 2-inch balls.